Okay. Okay, it being 6:33 on July 26th, I will call the meeting of the Ordinance Committee to order. We have present Counselor Lopez, I'm the chair, Linda Vacan, and Counselor Bartley. And with us in the chambers is also Counselor McGivern. I'm changing his name tonight. So, first item on the agenda, I'd accept an order to take it up.
Take number 1 off the table.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the first item of business is acceptance of the previous meeting minutes, and we have before us copies of minutes from June 28th. And members have indicated to me that they have had an opportunity to review them. And so I'm willing to entertain a motion on the minutes.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes and take care of it.
Yeah, accept and approve them. I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to, well, unless you want to jump ahead, Linda, you tell me.
No, I would like to go with item 2,
Okay,
please.
take number 2 off the table.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So item 2 is a petition of Oviedo Hernandez for 175 Walnut Street for a street vendor license to sell ice cup syrup. And Oviedo and Maria are here tonight representing that group. Would you like to come into the chambers, or that's fine, you don't have to. If you're more comfortable staying there, that's fine also.
¿Se quieren quedar ahí o quieren entrar? ¿Se quieren quedar ahí o quieren entrar? Aquí. Porque le vamos a hacer unas preguntas. I just told him that it will be a lot easier because,
yeah.
I mean, we will have some questions. So.
Yeah. It's just she's with a walker.
You have to
so-
speak louder.
She's with a walker, so I
Yes.
didn't know.
¿Está bien ahí? Yeah.
Sure.
Fine.
Here, let me get
Want
the-
them to use the mic?
I was gonna let him come and sit.
Yeah, that's what I asked him. That's what I told him.
Sit right here, if that's good.
So how was Mr. Limay last night?
Can't hear you.
Mr. Limay last night with the transfer station.
Great. Great, yeah. He runs a great business down there.
I will remember him, yes.
Well, took a while, but he runs a great business.
This is on, in case you just talking to. Okay.
Yeah. You do what you can do, right?
Okay, so I was explaining to the folks a little bit before the meeting that the reason this is coming up is because there was a new ordinance passed. And so our intention is just to take a look at what licenses exist in the city and understand what they are. And so I just want to put into the record that we have a copy of the application, and we also have an update from the police department from Captain Denise Duguay, who, as part of her email, includes that Mr. Hernandez completed a mobile food permit application for a stationary unit at Walnut Street in Appleton on May 31st, 2016, along with a base of operations form with the Holyoke Board of Health for the mobile food cart with umbrella. A mobile food permit was issued by the Holyoke Board of Health on May 31st for $100, and it contains a note that it is invalid pending until approved by the DPW and the City Council. It was explained to me that this means that Mr. Hernandez can still do business, but he has to show up at the City Council meeting, the date of which he'll be notified by a letter from the City Council. They do include that alternatively, Mr. Hernandez could have completed the Commonwealth of Massachusetts application for a license to peddle, and they attached the application to this email, which is good anywhere in the state, not just for Holyoke, and only costs $62, not $100 a year. So you might want to consider that for your future applications, since it was, that information was shared with us. So I just wanted to update the record in that regard. And it was the intention of the council for you to be able to continue doing whatever you had been doing until we could just go through the process and dot all the, get all the details done. Okay? So, Counselor Lopez, I think you've been interfacing on this a lot. Do you want to add anything about this license?
Basically, I think that when he applied, he was a little bit confused because I think the explanation that he got was that he will have to go to the police, be fingerprinted and all that. And he was a little bit confused because he had been doing this for a while, and this was the first time.
For the fingerprints?
Yes.
I mean, we have no knowledge of that or why that would have happened.
Well, I think that's what I
unless there was-
told you, that they thought that he was running in like an ice cream truck, and I explained to the police, but it's a done deal. They did it because he went with the paperwork, it's done, and that document went back to the local board of health. So
Right, so would your point be that in the future, he wouldn't have to do that?
absolutely, and that was
Right.
my point from the beginning. That
Right.
why are we doing that?
Right, and so it was a mistake,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't have had to do that second part. And so in the future, if you do keep everything else the same, you wouldn't have to.
All right.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments from the committee? Counselors in the chamber? Counselor McGivern?
My understanding is we're approving the location of the cart,
We're approving the license.
which only deals with where the cart is located. The state and the Board of Health approves the license as far as vending goes. This is part of our property lease. That's the only reason it's in front of us, is to talk about the site.
Because it comes under the licensing language. That's all.
So where would the site be?
175 Walnut Street is
By the
Is-
Appleton.
the site that I have on the application.
It's on the sidewalk?
Can you just describe for us where on Appleton Street your cart is situated?
Se lo puedo escribir en español porque en inglés no lo sé describir.
Diga.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Ok.
Thank you.
El carrito está en la Walnut Street, esquina de la Appleton Street. Appleton y Walnut.
So it's on the
This is
corner?
Appleton and Walnut.
Yeah, and is it on the sidewalk or
In
on
the
the
corner of
curb?
the sidewalk.
In the corner on the sidewalk. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Is it blocking the sidewalk for people to walk by?
Oh, no, no block.
If I may, I went to see that last Friday, and I took pictures just to show you that it's not blocking any.
No.
You can go by. Yep.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. The motion is approved, and so, just so you know, it will go to the city council meeting, which actually will be happening next week. And the council will act on it, and then you'll be all set. You can just keep doing what you've been doing. I anticipate. Thank you. Thanks for coming down.
Yo le llamo después si acaso le explico. Pero el martes se vota.
Está bien.
All right. No, no tiene que venir. I told them that they don't have to come down over here Tuesday.
No.
They don't have to come. Oh, no, that's going to be a long.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need to
Gracias.
come down,
Ya.
unless you want to.
Okay. Pues gracias. Sí, terminaron.
We can leave?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Unless
I
you
mean,
find it
you
very
don't want to stay here all night.
entertaining and interesting. If the committee would indulge, if we could take item 11 out of
So
order?
moved, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So item 11 is an order filed that the ordinance committee discuss and reconsider the newly installed no parking signs recently installed at 220 Linden Street on the Cabot Street side of this address. Further, that the owners of both the Sanctuary Animal Clinic and Atlas Property Management be called in for their input on this matter. And I do see that we have both interested parties here. We have our engineer, Yem Lip, with us. Yeah, come on in. You're like the main star on the agenda tonight, Mr. Lip.
Sit down in front of a mic, relax, put your feet up.
And so just by way of beginning the discussion, it came to light that there was other information that hadn't been considered when the committee first addressed this matter on that street. And it, at the time, looked like a kind of straightforward engineering kind of dry decision. So since then, we have more information. And I'm wondering if, Yem, you would feel comfortable weighing in at this point on item 11? We're jumping ahead on the agenda just because folks were here for it.
Sure.
I have the order, but I just didn't have your name, so, but. Oh, you mean in the first place? Oh, okay.
The original meeting.
No, this meeting right now, which it says in the order.
Oh, okay, you're making,
Both of those things, but that's neither here nor there, it has no reflection upon the committee at all.
okay, duly noted. So, given that we've had feedback from other neighbors in the vicinity there, that the parking issue that we were trying to fix has created a different parking issue. I
Sure.
don't know if you've had a chance to be aware of the details, or if we should let the neighbors speak.
Yeah,
To
I'd
let
like
us
hear
know?
what, what you guys have to say.
Okay. I will. So, if either of you would like to speak to the matter, I would just ask that you give your name and address, and then just give us your input. Sure. Equal opportunity, okay.
Okay, I'm really liking it here. My name is Diane Gagney. I am from Atlas Property Management. My property is next door to the one that had the signs put up. And I literally left work one night, there were no signs. I came to work the next day, there were signs. I was very disappointed that I was not consulted on this, because that action has a direct effect on my business. And I'm also a member of that ward. I have worked in that ward for 6 years. I have lived there and voted there for 4 years. And all I would have wanted is to be consulted, because, and if you look at our properties, where we have a sign on our lawn, from that sign to the property line, there's about a 2-car distance. Had someone come to me and asked, hey, I have a concern, I don't always see people coming down Cabot Street, I would have said, why don't you make it no parking from my sign to your property line? That would give you at least a 2-car length. That should be plenty of notice, plenty of room. It would still leave some parking for my tenants, my vendors, my agencies that come visit, and everyone would have been happy.
Okay, so you see that as a potential fix to the problem
I
at this
think it's a
point?
good compromise.
So it would be, at this point, would it be to move the sign?
I would like to move
I'm
this.
just trying to understand.
Right. I would offer to make from that sign, and I have pictures, but we can all officially measure it, to the property line, no parking. So take the sign that's at the corner of Cabot and Linden out, like move it down,
Okay.
which would leave me about 3-car lengths in front of my business for my tenants, my vendors, and whoever I need to see.
Is your issue the same?
Yeah,
Because you're-
Yeah, she articulates it correctly, yes, that's
Oh,
what I
okay.
was saying. yeah.
Okay.
So we are in agreement, yeah.
Oh, and Counselor Bresnahan has joined us in chambers. Any members of the committee or counselors have any questions? Counselor Bresnahan?
I don't, this is no reflection upon the committee at all. I really, I say that with sincerity, but, I mean, when you go down there, you can see that driving down Cabot Street, there's been 2 to 3 signs that are, I mean, basically, there's no parking directly in front of, a business, and then right across the street, there's another business. I mean, and I honestly, both of them would have been great. Some people, they're screaming, they're yelling, hound, the doctor, dying, they've been great. I wish they had been notified prior, and I wish they had been notified tonight. Again, I don't think that's the committee's issue. It's not your job to notify people that are affected by that. But, I mean, I think, and they've both been like, listen, we're not saying take down the signs, but give
but
us the
make it-
hours of operation that we're here, so our people that are visiting either the animal sanctuary or Atlas property or the Blue House, however you guys want to call it, are, they can
Right.
park there and have a time to shoot in and out of the place.
Right.
That's all they're looking for.
Thank you. So, maybe if you'd like to weigh in on,
Sure, so on Cabot Street, that block, we're just gonna look at that block. On the north side, which I believe that's your building. you
On
own,
which,
On Cabot,
on Cabot and Linden, mine is the one that's east of her building. She's just west
corner,
of me.
right. So on your side, there's no parking at all on that side. So up and down
Yes.
Cabot Street, and it's for the same reason, so that, if you're on Linden, you can't see who's coming at you. That's why there's no parking on that side. And that's an old ordinance.
so that
So-
one is old.
That's an old ordinance. So the whole block, there's no parking on that side of Cabot.
Okay.
And this new ordinance,
Hang on, I just want
I know,
to,
but I'm just trying to be clear, I want to be clear on like we're talking about a 4-way intersection,
yeah,
right? So north, south, east, west, just so, could you just say like you're coming up from Wisteria Hearst, is that correct?
so,
Yes.
looking at Cabot, you got Linden to the north and Oak to the south, somewhat. And there is no parking on the east side of Cabot, east-north.
So if you're coming up Cabot on the right,
Yes.
there's no parking.
There's no parking there. Now, that's an
That's-
existing ordinance.
That's been
that's
forever.
long-standing.
That's long-standing,
Okay.
and if you go up and down Cabot, there's quite a few, on one side.
I just want to make sure that she's
So,
following.
that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a street that has a speed limit of 30 mile an hour. It is one of the secondary, almost main street, in my opinion, in terms of traffic flow. You have 30 mile an hour road, plenty of cars, and really not enough shoulders. Where it is, you got the hill, at 30 mile an hour, you need quite a bit for visibility, safety-wise. So we have a long-standing ordinance of no parking on one side. We're making it half on the other side so that when you look up, you can see cars coming down, but on your way down, you can still park from there, from the alley down to Oak Street. And, we looked at property that has parking spaces, within the property. I know it's tough to reach everybody. If I had time, I would knock on doors and just get surveys of,
Yeah, we don't feel this is
I don't-
your fault in any way. I believe that my city councilor should have come to us and it would have prevented this from happening. We could have all sat down and talked about it reasonably. But instead, we're both confronted with a change in policy that's now a law.
So, to our engineer, Yem, do you see any way that the line of sight, because I remember this was a line of sight issue initially.
That's why we have the ordinance on the other side.
Yeah,
of that.
and then with this new change that we made, is there any way to modify it at all and still meet some of the safety concerns? I mean, is there something
If
between,
if speed is enforced, that, where you don't have people, I know for 30-mile-an-hour road, you're not gonna have people that are going at 50, 40. It's enforcement issue. So when you're looking at that kind of speed, you do need visibility. You need that kind of visibility.
Just to interject, that
hang on just a
Sure,
second, okay?
that's
So let me just recognize folks.
So here's what
before
I'm
you-
looking at too. I'm looking at from the intersection to, I believe, 25 feet, there's no parking. That's city
Anyway.
ordinance. And then you left with maybe, I believe it's 90 feet from there. So that's about four spaces at most. We could knock it down to have one space left, but then you'll have signs that just, it becomes, signs, too many signs, and it's confusing in a way. But in my opinion, if you can make no parking on one side, the other side should be just the same because of the site condition and that between on Cabot, within that block.
So do you see that we have any option here that's viable?
Unless we can widen the road and shrink down a tree belt, until we can, reduce the speed limit to, say, 15, 20 miles an hour.
We could do that, right? I mean, but it's, I've done that in other areas, and they just keep going the same speed.
Yeah, it's a state route. It's a main road. It's
So not
tough,
practical. Are there,
You want to get back to you?
yes, doctor?
I'd like to make a couple of comments. One is,
And can you just give your name and address?
sure, I'm John Perdrizet, Perdrizet.
Thanks.
And I too, I've been a resident for 22 years in Holyoke and 18 where I am now. My main comment is in relation to this 30-mile-an-hour dangerous zone. Well, if you're coming up the hill, there's a stop sign. If you're coming down a hill, there's a stop sign. So they're leaving to come down Cabot Street from a stop sign. It's not like it's 30-mile-an-hour straight ahead. They've got to pick
So
up
they're-
speed to get down there. That's the first thing is that it's not, it may be a 30-mile-an-hour zone, but who gets to 30 mile an hour in that short a distance? Maybe some people, but not many. That's one point. The other point is Aaron Brunell, who had the problem, has been there for 1 year. Now, there are so many other residents that have used that alleyway as an egress and an access to Cabot Street since I've been there for 18 years. There's never been an accident. Erin's accident occurred on a winter day when there was ice, and she came out of the road. It had nothing to do with visibility access. It had to do with stepping on the brake, coming out too fast and not being able to stop because it was icy. It had nothing to do with the fact that there wasn't a good visibility. And how come all the other people that have lived there for many, many more years than Erin never had a problem coming out of that alley? And then suddenly this happens, without any consultation. So
Maybe if our engineer could help me out with the use of the alley. So is the alley actually a road?
Well, it's a public access way. It's not a paved road, but people can use it.
So people are using it as a regular
sure,
street?
there's
Yeah,
at least
essentially.
Yes, they
5 or 6 houses use that alley.
all right.
A lot of houses in
Counselor
Ward
McGivern?
4 actually have their garages in the alleyway.
Oh, okay,
It's an egress that the city maintains
Okay.
for its public safety, but homeowners can own half of it and can use it.
okay. Thank you. Counselor Bresnahan?
Thank you. As the doctor just pointed out, is that I mean, and it's not, I don't want to say names, but I mean, I just think haven't been any accidents there. We're at an intersection that's a four-way stop sign, so even if the speed limit was 65 miles an hour, you're at an intersection that there is a four-way stop sign. I just think that, you know, forgetting about the consultation, forgetting about that, we got two taxpayers, two business owners that are saying, you've been there 18 years, Ilya and Diane have been there for years. I mean, there haven't been a lot of accidents. No other person has come before the city council in that ward that's saying, you know what, this is a dangerous intersection. I mean, you've got two retirement homes a block up. So, you know, people, I mean, even though the speed limit's 30, I just don't believe that there has been, you know, people zipping by. And again, no matter what direction, north, south, east, west you're coming from, you're coming to a complete stop to proceed. So I just think that, you know, they're willing to have signs up. They're just asking for maybe time limits so their businesses, their employers, the people that visit or work there are not negatively impacted. Simple.
Thank you. So to the neighbors, if you could share like what the hours would be, and I just want to preface asking you this to say that when the initial order came in, it came in as a safety order, which would require an ordinance change. So our engineer is asked to consult to us from that perspective. So when he's answering our questions, he has to answer them in accordance with what
Yes, I
we asked
understand that.
him to come in and do for us.
Yeah, that's fine,
Now,
that's fine.
our other considerations are more political in nature, but he's looking at it from strictly a science,
Yep,
traffic point of view.
got it.
All right?
If I may.
So,
But
Counselor
why,
Lopez?
I mean, the counselor is not here. Why don't we go back to square one, eliminate all the signs, and let them come back with a compromise or whatever will work? Because,
Well,
I mean, I wasn't here, and I'm listening to you, but at the same time, they have been there for years.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I just want to reinforce that there is a no parking ordinance on the north side
Yes, I'm
for that
familiar.
reason, up and down Cabot Street.
Yes.
The same logic applied to the other side.
Right.
So,
Not true, but on that street, yes.
yes, and nobody is, I just want to be very clear here that we're not questioning what your recommendation and your advice is. It's just we're in a situation of process and history, not to say that the current information isn't correct at all, which is just why I wanted to say that before I went back to the folks that are petitioning to see if we can come up with something between maybe taking everything down and putting it right back to what it was and making you so that you're
Happy.
really struggling. So I was just interested to know if there were particular hours.
Well, our office hours are very similar. The other issue I would like to point out, the nursing home that's directly across the street from my office, visitors park in front of my building. And they're there on weekends, they're there at night. So my receptionist actually looks out the window, and if she sees someone parking there, she'll tell them. And everyone has the same reaction. Oh, how long has this been no parking? And don't ask us, it just popped up. So not only is his business affected, mine, the nursing home is as well. So again, I can understand the safety concerns. I'm all for safety. I just don't like the way this happened.
Yeah.
And I hear that,
So
but
I see two compromises. One is the compromise that has to do with the actual physical spaces, if we could, and that certainly goes back to the engineer, is can we have two spaces that are okay for people coming in an alley that are empty, nobody can see, but two spaces above that we can all use? Can we do that? Or hours, as you said, hours would be the other thing.
And what would those be?
My hours are 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Yeah, mine are probably, well, a little more, 7 to 4:30 on some days, and then 7 till 7 on other days. But if you did,
So, Counselor Bartley.
Well, no, you can finish your thought, then
Oh, go
I'll
ahead.
give my 2 cents. Well, Madam Chair, I just liked your line of reasoning. So I hear what Councilor Lopez said too, and I don't want to go quite that far, but I'd like to meet in the middle if we could, and to allow parking for those 2 or 3 spaces that Ms. Gagné referenced from 7 to 7. That'd be my compromise. I won't make that motion yet, but I'd like to have us think about it.
I'd like to hear from our engineer. I know your recommendation remains, from a safety point of view, that it would be what it is currently. But if, in the interest of trying to make things livable for people, or manageable, let's say, would the solution to move the sign to make the area somewhat more limited, but leaving more parking, or saying no parking between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. be, I mean, if, I know none of them is your recommendation, but of the two, is there one that you see as better than another?
I guess I probably can see maybe squeezing one, because there's a 25 feet restriction from the intersections that you can't park. And then the same thing applied to the alleyways. You got so many feet from the alley. So between 25 and 25, you're left with not much left. I can look into maybe, trying to save one spot. But again, I'm going to pose a question. Is 1 or 2 spots, is that what we're talking about?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
two spots is what we'd ideally like to, would be fine. Just,
So, Mr. Pedrizet?
just one more point about this is, our engineer is saying that from a safety standpoint, that should be non-parking area, okay? Why not the whole street going down? Because I'll tell you, if you come out of Oak Street, so here's Linden Street, here's the alley, and here's Oak Street. You come down Linden, and there's the alley. You don't want parking to obstruct vision. When you come out of Oak Street, if they're parked down there, you have the same problem. I have that problem. When I come down Oak Street to come up to my clinic, I have to stop and be careful, because if there's a lot of cars parked there, you can't see past them. Why shouldn't the whole street be non-parking based on that philosophy that it's a 30-mile-an-hour zone? I just don't understand that.
Okay, so,
But
carrying your comment forward, I would say that the numerical answer is 2. Would that be accurate?
We could do 2.
Okay.
I wanted to just,
Counselor Lisi?
thanks. I don't think if we set the hours restriction that we're going to solve the problem, because I'm sure that the hours that you want to reserve the parking are probably the busier hours of the day. I'm sure it's not like there's cars flying by overnight, so
There actually is, Councilwoman, believe it or not.
I'm sure there's individual cars flying by, but not in a traffic type situation
Well,
where.
no, actually, especially this time of year, all the little hoopty rides, because at night, I'll sit out on my deck and work outside, and they just up and down. So it is.
And
those
how many
hours too.
residents are trying to come in and out of driveways and cross streets?
His workers, when the care center is busy, but that's not now, it's summer.
But after 7 p.m. is what my point?
I don't pay that much attention to them.
Okay, so exactly, I mean, there's not residents trying to come in and out of like their driveways between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., right? Because you're trying to free up the space for the daytime hours. So I just don't I don't see the time limitation going to solve the problem, and the way that I understand the engineer's recommendation is that we have a cross street, and so you have 25 feet from any cross street, there's no parking because you need a line of sight. And so the same 25 feet would be replicated at the bottom of that hill. So it's Linden and then Oak, 25 feet in on both sides of the street, right?
Correct.
On the, what is that, south side of the street? The side of the street that you're on?
South, yeah.
Yeah. There's no alley, is there?
There is,
There's an alley behind,
on the south side. On the north side, there's no alley.
so you guys are on the north side, that's right. So on the south side is where we're talking about there being another entrance egress where you would take 25 feet on either side of the entrance egress. On the opposite side of the street,
Yes.
there's no additional entrance egress, and that's why there's no additional 25 feet in either direction, right? So that's why there's the non-parallel restrictions on the two sides of the street. I'm just trying to make clear what the science or the logic that you're putting forward is, so that everybody is on the same page. Do I have it correct?
Yes.
If not, I mean, feel free to correct, because I think it's important that everybody understands the logic and the reasoning. So my understanding is on Cabot Street, from Linden and from Oak Street,
Yeah.
you have 25 feet of visibility from the corner in both directions.
The 25, that's an ordinance all over town. No parking.
Yep.
But there's no sign that says that,
You don't need a sign because it is the
as long as you know it's a
ordinance.
law, like a.
Okay,
yeah,
can we
sure.
just have one person speaking at a time, please?
There's signs, but if it's not there because it's missing. So that's, in addition to the, like I said, on Cabot, on the north side, there's an ordinance, an old ordinance that no parking up and down Cabot already,
On the north side.
on the north side. So,
They park in
you know,
front of
and the new ordinance is to have no parking on the south side from the alley to Linden.
So then my question would be, does it make sense to perhaps take another look at the north side of the street? Because if there is no entrance egress on the north side of the street where we need to create visibility, there seems to be the potential to create more parking on the north side of the street.
I can look into that,
Yeah, that would be, I think, the better option.
to offset the net loss.
There is parking
Mr.
on the north.
Pertuzet?
Yes, there is parking on the north side of the street, right in front of the nursing home. I mean, that whole block is parking.
It's
They park there all the time.
So, Council Bresnahan,
Yeah, I mean, I understand the ordinance that was there, but I mean, was there an accident report study done from the last at least 18 years that there hasn't been parking signs? I mean, we could put signs up everywhere, but I mean, if there's not, and public safety is on everybody's mind. I'm not questioning that. I'm not questioning your decision. I know your role. I'm just trying to understand, like, did you present, I wasn't at the last committee meeting when these signs were installed. Did you present a study of all the car accidents that have taken place in this exact area that we're talking about?
that wasn't,
No, I've looked at the geometry and the hill, the slope of the road
Right.
and the speed.
But again, all the cars from all directions are coming to a four-way stop sign. Is that true?
And that intersection, but not on Oak and Cabot.
Right, but I mean, that's where the signs were put in the area that we're talking about. You proceed through that stop sign, and on your right-hand side going down, or south, whatever you want to call it, that's where the no parking signs are.
Sure.
Right, so I mean, I'm just curious, is that we should make a habit of looking into, accident patterns to see, like, not that we don't want any accidents, but for 18 years, if there's only been one accident, I'd say that's a pretty safe street. And I mean, just from a, city councilor standpoint, again, I agree with what your sentiments are, but if I can park in front of the Renaissance Center across that road, and then all of a sudden we put up 4 no parking signs. I mean, I imagine if we did it at the Renaissance Center, we'd be talking to the owners of the Renaissance Center that would be saying, well, you know, how are people gonna come in here at 7 o'clock and visit their loved ones because they work all day? I mean, that's, and I think that if we could
But-
compromise on this,
Right,
it
but
would
I
be all
think
right.
Rebecca is right, that we should look at maybe allowing parking on the north side of Cabot, and I can look into that. Because you do come to a 4-way stop there, and, now that you have no parking on the other side, now the road is wide enough to accommodate parking on the north side.
Or we could, I mean, well then, so we're doing the traverse. I mean, we just put parking signs on the south side, and you're suggesting that we leave the parking signs on the south side and let people park on the north side? Or we could take the signs that are on the south side. I mean, I'll leave the engineering to you because I'm not good with math, but I just think that they're willing, the folks that are adversely affected by this process are willing to have signs up.
Right.
And
Well, what you want to look at is that, do we have a stop sign on the alley? If there's a stop at the alley, yes, we wouldn't be talking about this, because,
Well, there we go.
if you're coming out an alley and you're not stopping, then
No.
that's a problem.
but, so, I'm saying there's a stop at Linden. When you come to Linden, you stop, so you give the people that travel in Linden plenty of time to see what's going on, so I know why would you want to have no parking back and forth up and down Cabot Street?
Right.
But if you're really talking about trying to squeeze 1 or 2 parking space, that's what we have to do. And it's still not enough. But, again, when I looked at this initially, I see empty parking space on your side, and then you have parking space on Linden on the other side, correct?
Which I share with the nursing home.
Correct. So.
That's where all their workers
That's
park.
right, like, I apologize for not able to, have a discussion with you, more, but I look at that and I, sense that, if we're talking about trying to save 1 or 2 spaces, there'd be way too many signs, it's just sign pollution all over again, and it's confusing, so, we're looking at a 30-mile-an-hour road, you can go down the hill, there is a site, visibility issue with that, so. And the logic of no parking on that side is the same as there's no parking on your side for a long, long time. It's just now there's an issue.
Counselor McGivern's in the queue. and
Thank you.
then
Just a couple thoughts. From representing Ward 4 a long time ago and from living and growing up in the neighborhood, there's 100 intersections that have the same problem. There's probably 100 alleyways or aren't used as frequently, thankfully, that would have the same problem. The solution isn't so much to no parking. Cabot Street does not have enough room for parking lanes on both sides of the street. I can tell you that right now. You'd have to have them on one side or the other. But there's 2 solutions. One is the day of the accident, if the visibility was blocked, there's a good chance there was a car illegally parked. That car should have been cited, and that car would have been responsible for the accident. End of story right there. 2, put a stop sign on Cabot at Oak Street. That'll slow people down. Make them stop on Cabot going up and down at Oak Street. And then you won't need the person, because once they stop, they're not going to, with a half a block, pick up the speed that would cause an accident for someone coming out of the alleyway.
Thank you. So, Counselor Lisi?
Thank you. I just want to note, I think that Councilor Bresnahan had made some comments about the process, and this passed through this committee, this order in the form that it is, passed through this committee unanimously. It also was voted by the City Council unanimously. So I don't think that, I don't think there was any, underhandedness, or I don't understand what the point of the comment was exactly, other than new issues are being raised now, and so we're addressing those issues. But I mean, based on the report from the engineer, we had voted unanimously in 2 separate meetings to make those changes.
Linda?
Thank you. Mr. Herdrzett.
Yes, sorry, thank you. The main crux of the matter is that we have a city councilor that didn't even come talk to us. That's the main point. We voted her in. Erin Burnell didn't even vote her in. She's been in the neighborhood 1 year. I've been there 18. I voted Josie in. She didn't even tell me that this went through. That's the main point, not that you all were blindsided too. You know, why would you, you don't have time to research every little thing that comes through a city councilor, but the city councilor that presents this to you should have done the right thing and seen all the abutters and talked to them.
So just in terms of summarizing this and seeing if we can get to a place where we can have a motion made by one of our members, my perception on this is that it came to us as a straightforward line of sight vision question of a technical matter, as we have dealt with in other situations. Right. We were not aware of any other concerns that would have had an impact on it. And to a point that was earlier made, there's many streets in the city that if we all filed orders for any number of streets and intersections, I'm sure your recommendation would come back to have less parking, to have improved line of sight. I mean, I think it's just a reality throughout the city.
But
So
I
totally.
did have discussion with you during the process that, you know, let's have this, and then we'll look in the future about making parking on the north side because of the, like you say, you come to a stop at Linden, that's, you know, on that side of Cabot, if we need to create parkings, that's possible.
I'm not quite sure I know where you mean by the north side. So
So-
uphill from Linden Street?
I'd like to make a motion.
Yep, So.
I'd like to make a motion.
Hang on a second. So, in terms of the summary of where we're at and why we're here, it is no reflection on the engineer at all. It is a matter of practical realities of historical working situations in the neighborhood. So I just want to be clear about that. So having said that, if there's a member of the committee, having heard all the discussion and the various options about moving the sign, adding a stop sign,
I'd like
asking
to,
our engineer to relook at it and see if he can find one or two spaces that would keep the safety issues there.
Yeah, I'll just make a motion to,
so I was about to make a motion 3 times, and I'd like to ask, thank you. I'd like to ask the engineer to draw up a schematic of what it would look like to have no parking on the south side of the street, parking on the north side of the street, and then ask the ward counselor to shop it around to the neighbors to see if there could be some consensus built around that at least base schematic of what that would look like and how that would impact the neighborhood.
Are you talking about Linden Street or Cabot?
I'm talking about Cabot Street. So the proposal of creating 25 feet of site from the corner, from the alley, freeing up the parking on the other side of the street. And I mean, again, it's just the schematic, so we'll have a discussion out of committee with the neighbors. There could be a community meeting, perhaps the nursing home would like to be a part of that conversation, but Josie can shop it around to the neighbors and come to a consensus.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not hearing a second. Is there another motion?
is that the ruling?
I don't have a second, so there is no motion before
Well,
us. Is
I
there
would
somebody
like-
that would like to make
I would
a
like to make my
motion?
motion that we eliminate any signs and start from the beginning.
On the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All again, opposed? So the motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For your time.
This will go, just so you understand the process, this recommendation then goes to the city council. So this is not a final action. This is a recommendation to the full council on Tuesday, okay? Thank you. Motion to take up-
number 3, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Item 3, filed by Counselor Jordan. that Magnolia Ave, Mackenzie Ave, and Portland Street be reviewed for a three-way stop and approved as a three-way stop if deemed appropriate.
Want me to just touch on it briefly? Like why I filed it?
Sure, to the maker of the order, Counselor Jourdain?
Yeah, very briefly. Residents requested, they feel that this is sort of a T intersection, felt it was best to have a three-way stop there for safety. There's some blind lines, there's different gradients in the road, and they felt it would be safest to have all cars stop coming into the intersection. So that's why it's now before the city engineer. So I'd be interested to hear your opinion of that.
So right now we have two ways that stop sign on Mackenzie coming onto Magnolia, and you have stop sign at Magnolia coming, Portland to Mackenzie. Look at traffic accident report, there's not, nothing significant. But again, seeing that there's a stop sign there on Portland due to again, it is the site issues. And I could see the same case for the stop sign at Magnolia. Make it an all-way stops in that intersections.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to be adopted.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Make a motion to take up item 4 off the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 4, filed by Counselor McGee, order that DPW install speed bumps on Old Jarvis and do a traffic study. Now, this doesn't specify whether, but I'm guessing it's temporary because there would have to be a petition filed in order for it to be permanent. So I think it's safe for us to discuss it.
To add the word temporary before speed bumps.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Add them to the list, or?
Motion to approve.
So, yes, I think really that's all that goes
Motion to
on with
approve.
that.
Yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to take up item 5 off the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5, filed by Counselor Bresnahan, ordered that a 15-minute parking-only sign or verbiage to that effect be placed in front of 1373 Dwight Street in front of the Friendly Variety Store. Counselor Bresnahan, do you want to just give us a quick overview?
Sure. There's a bodega on the corner of Dwight Street, and there's a new business that just moved in next door, a barber shop. Not recently, probably within this past year, and obviously haircuts take quicker than it is to get a gallon of milk out of a bodega. So Jose Melendez had approached me and asked me if I could help him out. I spoke to him today to find out if he could make the meeting. He actually can't. He's working, but all he's looking for is perhaps, and I know he actually said that Yem was out there. Either we can possibly extend that sign 15 minutes from the point where the sign is now to the corner. Or as opposed to putting, signs every 5 feet, maybe we could just put the sign that's up there currently now that says no parking only 15 minutes. If it could say parking only 15 minutes from this point to the corner. I mean, he's amenable to that.
Okay.
That's basically.
Actually, that's an existing ordinance right now. 15-minute parking from that sign to the intersection. So the sign was misplaced.
Okay. So all you got to do is put a sign up that says from this point to the corner and
We'll put an arrow add an arrow to the sign, or put a signpost by his door.
that works for me.
That they were all that easy.
So,
So,
Go ahead, Kev.
could I be added as a co-sponsor?
Absolutely. Sure. Yep.
okay,
Owners are they're homeowners and they live in Holyoke.
Wonderful.
okay. So a motion would be in order?
To receive and adopt and refer to the engineer to fix the signage.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 6 off the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This order was filed by Counselor Bartley, ordered that the City of Holyoke consider adding stop signs on Washington Ave at the intersection of Charles Street and Chapin Street. Counselor
Yep,
Bartley?
just a constituent request, and and to see if it made sense from an engineering perspective.
So the intersection is Washington, and then it's Charles, and Chapin started the turn, correct?
Exactly, yeah, it's a little confusing, for sure. So Washington runs east-west, and Charles runs north-south, but Washington at that bend turns into Chapin Street.
Right, so is Chapin still
So there are
part of the
stop signs
order?
there are stop signs on Charles Street running, which runs north-south. So the constituent is wondering if it's, I can say I made a typo in there, it'd be nice if I could spell Washington, wouldn't it? It's, the constituent is wondering if it made sense to put stop signs on Washington.
So for this intersection, again, look at the site, looking at the traffic count and accident, what we have now is that you stop, if you're on Washington, you can go straight through, and then if you're on Charles, you come to a stop. I don't recommend making any change, just based on what, what I have for traffic for speed, people are 85th percentile speed at less than posted speed, so.
Okay, okay, I'm just gonna tell the constituents.
I just recommend to
The
leave
city
it as
engineer
is.
does not recommend making a change at this time.
Correct.
That's fine. So we'll just say most of the orders comply with and don't recommend a change this time.
Is that a motion?
Yep.
Is there a second? All in favor?
All right,
Aye. Item 7,
Move item number 7 off the table.
second.
all in favor?
All right,
Filed by Counselor McGee, ordered that the city engineer, DPW, look into installing a stop sign at Old Jarvis and Bassett. And the maker of the order isn't here, so if you have,
I recommend leave it as is. Again, I did do a speed study, and people are going at less than 20 miles an hour, and that's a
okay.
posted speed of 20, so.
so I'll make a motion that we just, that we adhere to the city engineer's recommendation to not make a change.
all in favor?
All right,
Aye.
motion taken to 8?
All in favor?
All right,
Item 8 was filed by Counselor LeBron Martinez, ordered that parking ordinances relative to Race Street along the Canal Walk be amended in accordance with plans prepared by the city engineer.
Could I have this on hold, because Marcos wants to speak on this one?
motion to table.
Um,
All in favor?
All right,
I'll let him
motion
know
taken number
that.
9?
So that is tabled. All in favor of taking up item 9?
All right,
Aye. Filed by Counselor Roman, ordered that the city place a loading zone sign in front of 845 Main Street for business owner Diomedes Chavez, who is having difficulty locating parking for a delivery vehicle.
So, right now we have 2 spots, 15-minute parking spot in front of the store. If you put a loading zone there, you would eliminate the 15-minute parking spots. I guess I recommend dedicate a loading zone across the street from the store, abutting the parkland, where it is now, it's a no parking up and down that street on that side. So creating maybe a 40 feet of no loading zone.
If I,
Counselor Lopez?
the only issue is that across the street is the PVTA bus stop. And then you will have to move the PVTA from that area. But I think the big problem here is some of the trucks, some of the delivery, they're taking double parking. And then there is a traffic signal right there, the traffic light.
Yeah.
It is a mess. I mean, I don't know how you can take care of that because there's not enough parking there either.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, does anybody know if we put up the 2 15-minute signs at the request of the business owner? It's hard when the makers of the order don't come in.
Sure.
Because perhaps the business owner obviously they know what they have in front of their store, right? And if they're requesting the loading zone, then they're gonna know they're gonna lose one of those 15-minute slots, right? If there's nowhere else to go.
I would say both. Yeah.
Oh, both of them? Oh, well, maybe we table it till the maker can come in and,
Is it Gisetta? The Springdale Grocery?
Here.
Yes, Springdale Grocery.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, it is.
Springdale
It is.
Grocery.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so, well, why can't we just, I'm sorry, Madam,
Counselor Bartley?
well, since we're on the topic, through the Chair, Diosdado, can I ask you, there appears to be, I don't want to have a loading zone by Springdale Park, so, for a business. So why can't we put some sort of a temporary parking right in front of the big guy's business? Why can't we do that?
No, I don't have any problem. The only issue is that he will be losing the 2 15-minute parking, which is fine with me. But I mean, if you start taking parking from in front of the buildings, that is going to create another problem. So you probably want to wait for Nelson. I don't know how he want to handle that.
Okay, I'll wait for Nelson.
I would just suggest that we're at a lack of information here because the maker of the order probably has more information,
Motion
so.
table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Wanna take
Item
up number-
10?
Well, you want to take it number 8 again, since Marcos is here, or?
Oh, well, Yem, do you want to go back
Motion
to 8?
reconsider?
Wait on 8, or do you need something else besides Marcos?
Are
We
you,
can jump back, yeah, we can go back to 8.
just as a point of information, are you here on an agenda item? Okay,
Yeah, we just tabled it. so-
okay, so,
So motion reconsider action, take number 8 off the table?
all in favor? Aye. Okay, so going back to item 8, where we are talking about looking at the parking ordinances relative to Race Street along the Canal Walk to be amended in accordance with plans prepared by the city engineer. And he was waiting for your input.
Sure. So thank you for going back and giving me the opportunity to express myself. I'll try to be brief. I'm sure you
Okay.
have a long agenda.
Marco, Guerrero, you have the floor.
Not too long ago, maybe several months ago or a year ago, a similar order was considered, so I wanted to be able to come here and explain why we're revisiting the item. The original design of the canal walk included a bike lane on both sides of the right-of-way, so one in each direction, one north, one south. That had been part of the design since, not sure when it started, but just before my tenure, I'll say 2010, 2011, in compliance with the state's interpretation of the complete streets regulations that they have. While the issue of parking was somewhat of a concern from the get-go, it never really reached a fever pitch until the canal walk was close to opening, at which point we really started engaging with the state to see if we could pursue other alternatives, particularly because the stretch of road was not that long, and so the bike lanes really weren't. They were dumping into just the street. And so we asked whether the bicycle markings on the street could be a shared roadway, particularly as we're looking at our entire bike network or potential bike network in the city. It's not obvious that Ray Street should be the one place, the major bike highway, if you will. And even if it is, the traffic is not significant. So long story short, they did agree to take the bike lanes out. That allowed us to put parking back on the western side of Ray Street, on the eastern bank of the second level canal. I don't remember the exact numbers. I mean, maybe it's in the 40s, but that does provide some significant parking there, which is important given the amount of development spurring in that area. So that's why this is being brought up again. As part of the design, it required no parking signs, and so the first time it was no parking, and now it is putting back parking because we were trying to be responsive to constituents.
Okay, so at this point, what are you looking for from the committee?
I'm supporting the plans put forward by Yem, and just letting everyone know that it has been in joint conversation amongst us. Yem took the lead this time around to put the parking back in.
Okay, so from your point of, from an engineering point of view, you're all set and you just need us to,
Correct, and I just want to pass out the paper.
okay. Oh, okay.
This will clean up what's there now.
Can you go over, I mean, I know that there are other businesses on Ray Street. What is it that we're doing? I mean, are we eliminating all the parking and implementing
Putting it-
something
We're
new?
putting it back, right?
Putting it
We're
back.
putting it back.
We're
okay.
putting it back.
Okay, all
And it
right.
never, was it ever actually eliminated?
The
I mean, physically eliminated?
There's parking there right now.
Well, what the compromise that that we had placed was we were not enforcing the no parking.
Okay.
To
So
not
it will look the
have
same.
mutiny. Yes, no, it will look exactly
It will
the
look
same.
the same.
It will look the same, right?
Sometimes that's the easiest.
There
way.
was one moment. There were several weeks where there were no parking signs, which were covered, and no paintings, no markings on the street. But because there was a somewhat of a difference of opinion, shall we say, between state and local officials, and we reached the current agreement, and at that point, parking was painted back on the street.
Okay, so it sounds, Councilor Lopez.
Just another question. Are you talking about from Dwight Street all the way to where?
Appleton.
Upperton. Oh, great.
Okay.
Approve.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to take number 10 off the table?
All in favor?
Aye. Oh, congratulations. Oh, I didn't realize, so. Oh, okay, Marcos, well done.
I guess I'm out of the loop.
I like David as a name.
I think I'm done. Is that it?
Okay, on to item 10. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 10, filed by Councilor Valentin, ordered that the crosswalks at the intersection of Beach and Dwight are assessed for pedestrian safety. Currently, there are 3 crosswalks for 4 crossing points.
Ah.
Any thoughts on that?
It's possible, again, this is money. It costs money to get new controls, costs money to get new pedestrian signal heads. That intersection along, similar to other intersection on Beach Street, it's a coordinated system signal. So, you're trying to create flow without interrupting reducing the level of service of the intersection. So that's why it was done that way. So if you were to change that, meaning you're going to throw the coordination system out a window, you're going to have to upgrade the control, and then you have to purchase new PED signal head. You would have to build ramps to accommodate
Accessibility.
the accessibility. So it's earthwork, it's, equipment replacement upgrade.
Any ballpark idea about how much it would cost?
It could be between 15 and 20, 15 and 30, so, per intersection. Again, if you're doing more than one, I think if you're just doing one, it could be a little more, because then
Right.
you get,
15 to
Between
30,000 per
30.
intersection. with the
It's not
signalized.
crosswalk. There's no pet signal there now. And, you know, the ramps aren't placed, you know, you got build new ramps. You know, it's concrete work, it's excavation, it's,
So it would, from a safety point of view, it could merit doing, but it's a matter of
If there's money-
economics and money in the budget
Sure.
to do it.
yes.
So what is the pleasure of the committee?
Refer it to the mayor to see if he's got the money.
Sure.
I think it's a great idea.
What is the will of the committee?
Motion to refer the order to Mayor Morris.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Yem.
Motion to take number 12 off the table.
All in favor?
Aye.
This order was filed by Councilor Lopez, ordered that the disabled parking space located at 144 Linden Street be moved to 378 Appleton Street, 2L for Luis Centeno.
Thanks,
So
Jan.
this doesn't, I think you're all set. Thank you very
Thank you,
much
Jan.
for coming down, and we'll try to keep it to once a month.
What happened, I gave the application to Liz. He was supposed to complete it, and I think he's still waiting for the landlord to sign and then bring
Oh,
it back. I think
okay.
we can move it, just pending that, and then wait for the handicap commission. I don't know how.
Usually once they say okay, we just approve it.
Right, but
So
this
they're
is
missing
just
that information.
moving one that was already approved, in essence. So you're suggesting that we
Well,
recommend approval pending the disabilities report?
yeah, because I spoke to Mr. Welsh, and he told me as soon as he get that application, he doesn't see a problem
Oh,
approving
okay.
because it's
So
a
he-
building.
So Dave,
But he needs to get that
Don said
application.
that? He
Well,
said
that's what he mentioned to me, but he needs that application to,
Complete
Make
the
it official.
sheet?
make
Yeah.
it official.
and there'll be no problem with the landlord, you don't think?
I doubt it. It's a building, and this guy is disabled, and there's no parking there. But I mean, and if the landlord doesn't sign, so we will have to deny it. I
So
guess.
just let us know if, we could approve it pending that.
Yeah, I think so. Then I will call Luis Centeno tomorrow. Make sure that we get that to Mr. Welsh.
Okay.
Just for a second, can we suspend the rules just to check with Kara? All in favor? Aye. So Kara, can we do that way? I just saw you looking and I didn't know if you were like,
That's fine.
so we need to refer it to you for legal form pending review by the Disabilities Commission? Would that be the proper order? Motion?
So don't bring it into, like, we'll get it to you, you can start putting it in the legal form once you get these measurements and all this, but don't bring it into the full council for a vote until it's approved. But this way it'll be
Would that
ready to
be-
go.
Okay, so can you,
We'll remember.
can you just make the motion that way?
Okay, so I make a motion that item 12 be adopted, that the handicap space be moved as indicated in the order, pending the Disabilities Commission stating that they're in support of it, and that we would ask that the Law Department take this, draw it into legal form, and bring it before the council for a vote after Disability Commission has approved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Take item 13 off the table.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Oh, actually, let's do 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, all as a package off the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so items 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 all relate to the purchasing department and the ordinance for that has been before the committee now for a number of meetings. One is to include for the public procurement of outside legal counsel. Another is to include the public procurement of ambulance service. A third is for the public procurement of banking service. A fourth is to put police-ordered towing and any other public towing service out to bid on at least a biennial basis. And the last order is that the Code of Ordinances be reviewed and amended as necessary for consistency with thresholds set by Mass General Law, Chapter 30B. to the maker of the order, which was, I believe, it was either Counselor Jordan or Counselor Bartley.
And Counselor Soto,
It was Counselor Soto?
and Counselor Soto.
And Counselor
Yeah.
Soto.
Stuff for Counselor Soto's in here too.
So Kara, just in sum, all of the pay-to-play revisions that we made at the last meeting, those are all in there now? Okay.
Yep.
I haven't had a
This
chance
is the
to-
same email that
I just have one, I have a quick
you know,
edit or
This
two.
is the same email? This document is the same information that you email?
July 21.
Yes. It is? Okay, so I read it.
Okay, yep.
And we decided to take towing out of bidding, and how did we finally word that?
We've been through so many renditions of this, I think.
So the towing will fall under the,
The regular procedure, but weren't we gonna put something is that the mayor is encouraged to post those, though?
yep, that's in there.
You did, but where
Yeah,
did
it's-
you put that language?
Two,
It's on-
335.
Yep.
C.
See, prior to the award is subject to this, notice of potential will be advertised, okay.
So the towing will be exempt? We're leaving
Remain
it
It'll
exempt?
be posted, but it'll be subject to the pay-to-play. Among all the other ones.
Right, so those we left as we originally had put them.
Okay.
So, members of the,
I think we covered it, right?
Yeah,
At this point, Kara, all the revisions?
I think, yeah, I tried to get everything
Yeah.
from last time.
we were down to the last
Saying that we got by
two,
email.
right?
That's right.
Last time. Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, just for Kara. Kara, just for this advertising bid here in the local newspaper and at the city hall with other bid notices, we don't advertise on our website, or we don't advertise? Do we have website advertising? Or can we,
I don't know, that'd be a question for purchasing, I don't know.
okay, well, can we just put a language to that effect? Just
Would allow it?
to allow it, to mandate it?
Sure, I think yeah, I don't know, I don't wanna speak for the purchasing director, I know she's trying to update everything in the office, so that's fine.
Which section, which
So
page?
this is the new.
I'm sorry, it's this one right here, Linda?
2335.
2335C.
And could we,
Hang on.
I think what I was trying to capture with City Hall, with the other bid notices, that it would be advertised in the same way anything else is advertised, because I honestly wasn't sure, and it depends. But if you want to add in the website, that's fine.
Hang on, I need a motion.
Well, yes, I don't want to ask a question before I make the
I,
motion.
I think that, if I may, I think that's a good
Councilor Lopez?
idea, but I think that we should check. I mean, if you don't mind checking with the purchasing department before we add it. I
Pretty
mean, and
sure
then if
that-
it's okay, we can add it.
Well,
I think it's a good idea.
Well, I mean, don't you think all these bids should?
Yeah.
be
Pretty
on
sure
the
they
website?
are.
I mean, we're going that direction.
We're in a world of I mean,
Yes.
it seems like a notice here at City Hall and in the local newspaper.
I feel like,
I think all this stuff should be on the website.
well, I frankly feel like motioning to delete the newspaper. I gotta be frank, I won't, but,
Right.
well,
It's up to you, whatever, I mean, this is your, essentially your ordinance
It's a waste
and
of money,
your
that's why.
procedure, so.
I make the motion.
what they've done to my clients over the years, what they, legal, well, I like,
Unless you wanna put newspaper as may, you could put, post City Hall website and may in the newspaper, but shall on the other two.
I'll make that motion,
It-
or I'll second that motion.
If I may, the key issue is that they shall be advertised. The how could be a may, right?
Well, it shall be
What-
advertised, but
but-
they shall be on the website, they shall be posted in City Hall, and they may be in the newspaper.
Yeah,
At your motion?
Well, it's Kevin's motion, I'm
that's
seconding
my
it.
motion.
Okay.
I'm seconding
Is
it.
that okay?
That's
You-
fine.
You got the gist of that?
Yep.
Okay.
Shall be advertised.
Oh, so shall be advertised for sure.
No, I'm just,
And shall
I'm
be,
just writing
Advertised
down.
inside City Hall,
Shall-
on the city website, and,
City Hall.
and may be posted on newspaper.
yeah, may also be advertised in the newspaper.
Or any other journal, or wherever they,
Paper,
wherever Madam,
or
purchasing
other,
director, or
or
other-
other
Penny saver.
paper,
or other journal, whatever.
or
she-
other print media.
Print media, whatever. Perfect.
Okay, so we have, a motion to amend section 2-335C as stated. All in favor? Aye. Is the committee ready to make a motion on the whole
Make a motion,
ordinance at this point?
yeah, make a motion to be adopted as amended.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was a lot of work,
A lot of
but
work.
A lot of work.
we've gotten to a final product. Thank you very much for your assistance on this, Kara.
Motion to take up number 19.
18.
Motion to take up number 18.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Filed by Counselor Jordan, ordered that Chapter 54 of the Holyoke Code of Ordinances be amended to make it unlawful to use a drone to fly over the private property of another without their prior written consent. They shall also be prohibited from flying over any municipal property without the prior written consent of the city. A violation shall be subject to a fine. A drone shall be defined as any unmanned aerial system. And of course, we all know we had a whole lot of discussion about this. We got a lot of material to review, and so now we're on step 2 or 3 here.
So Carrie, you kind of put together a typed version on this. And last we discussed, I believe you were going to talk to the MAA kind of as to where we were at with the draft version at least and get their input. And then I was going to talk today about, 2 of the local people here that we have who approached me, Jesus Pereira as well as Jeff Burns on this, and they gave me some good pointers. I happen to have them as well. A couple things they would like to see altered that I want to just put out there, so I'd be interested in what feedback you got.
Yeah, I do have.
Okay. Okay.
But you did send us an email on 6/28 with the copies in the memo, too, relative to drones.
That was prior to our.
Right, but we have that
Yep. Yes, we
already.
do.
We have that already. Are there 2?
I think it's the Mass Aeronautics Commission, it's part of the DOT. I mean, basically, I just got it yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to give much more thought to it, but he did note a few areas of concern that are likely preempted. I think the part about, in particular, the part which obviously was your concern about limiting it over private property, they noted may be subject to preemption because the federal law does allow drones to fly over private property. So, maybe, I mean, Kevin, if you want to share the other comments you got, and then I can do
Yeah.
a little bit more research.
The
and-
comments here are from the
the comments
CAC?
are from DOT, from there. And so if you remember, basically, the Aeronautics Commission has authority to review any bylaw or ordinance that has to do with aeronautics and mostly airports, but it looked, when I spoke with them and the Attorney General's office, it looked like because many communities are going to be regulating drones, there is eventually going to be a requirement that any ordinance be subject, to their review. So that was why we sent it to
Yeah.
them ahead of time.
Yep.
So.
Which is good, yeah. Thank you, Kara, for that. And we can go through those different, looks like there was, something in the preamble that they pointed out, and then a couple of the, drone operation points. I'm actually impressed that there was not more comments, actually, quite frankly. Okay, so, I spoke to Jesus and Jeff, who obviously do this commercially. They're both very, very smart people in their own right, and certainly on this topic have a lot of expert knowledge. The big thing that they wanted to drive home, and I gave them a copy of what Kara handed out at the last time, was one, they think that the ordinance that we have should give particular focus to hobbyists, non-commercial people doing this for a living, because they feel that the commercial people like themselves, they're required to meet a higher standard anyways, and that if you're doing this for a living, you're less likely to be, a clown with these drones, as opposed to, the guy who goes to Toys R Us, picks up the $79 drone and starts flying it over the football field, during halftime. So their point was, if we can give some maybe less crackdown or less getting into the business of the people who operate this as a full-time basis, and I was open to that, that the commercial people, this would be more focused on people who are not doing this primarily as a living. So I thought that was a good point. Let's see. The other point they wanted to make was, let's see, there was one of these, not operate except in daylight only or civil twilight with appropriate anti-collision lighting. I basically took that right out of the federal regs. And then there was a point here, on their own property. I'm trying to remember what their point was on bringing that. Oh yeah, and then the comment, I think the comment actually went to not photograph or videotape any person, any resident in their own home or on their property without their prior written consent on their property. So apparently, I guess as long as you're over your own property, I guess technically you're allowed to videotape and photograph people as long as you're doing it from your own property. You just can't that was their point, that they don't want you videotaping or photographing people on their property, like you fly it over their house and start photographing. But if you're flying it over your property and you photograph people of the neighborhood or people that you could see from their own backyard already, that is permissible. But they did say that they do blur out, photos of people. They also did make me feel a lot more comfortable about the fact that they said you'd have to be really, really close to actually take good shots inside somebody's window anyways. They said that that's highly unlikely based on the cameras that are really out there. From any appreciable distance, you couldn't really do that.
That was that New York lawsuit, though.
Yes, which was interesting, that you actually could, I believe that New York case, if I recall correctly, was somebody with a high-powered camera, not a drone involved, but was taking a photo out their window, zooming it into their neighbor's window, and was taking photos of them.
And then published.
Surreptitiously. Were they publishing them too? And the court said that's legal, interestingly enough. Yeah. So, that's a advertisement for window curtains and shades, obviously. But so anyways, so I think that was the point I wanted to bring on that one, that if we could maybe fix that component to number 5. But they felt the big point here, I don't know how you could word it, Kara, but say that the focus of this is on the hobbyist, non-commercial people who are not doing it primarily for a living, that those you could just say are subject to federal regulation, whereas, the hobbyist and the non-commercials are subject to this ordinance. Doing. Okay. We'll differentiate or define, we'll have to define commercial in there. Maybe the federal regs have a definition already. But obviously somebody who's not operating primarily on a profit, or, if you're a hobbyist, you're not doing this for a living, like, I believe there was certain points that they made, like, their drone has to have their name on it, it has to have an ID number on it, it has to have all, they're operating with all these distinctions on their vehicles. Huh?
It's like, what?
No, the FAA issues licenses.
Right.
I guess they have to get an FAA license too to do it. Yeah.
So is there anybody else?
Of course, once we get this all perfect and totally done, Chicopee will copy everything we did, and that's, they'll be done in 10 minutes.
Maybe they'll
whereas-
do something we
Once
did.
again, we do all the hard work for Chicopee, you know. But that's all right.
Are there any other comments or questions relative to this, Ben?
Kara, what was the MAA's comment on the, I get the one about line of sight. They may want us to make that stricter. That's already a requirement, but, on number 6, not operate over private property of another unless prior written consent is obtained from the property owner. So what was MAA saying? That people could fly over other people's properties even at low altitudes? That's kind of a key point.
That was the whole kind of thought that perhaps you could have some local regulation because the FAA had never regulated that lower airspace.
Yep.
But then they did. But I think to your point of if you are focusing on the hobbyists, that might more narrowly tailor it to their
To fix
point.
that.
Oh, that
yeah.
would work?
Okay.
It may, and that's where I'll have to give it some more thought. But I think because that FAA rule really is just for the commercial
Right.
drones, so
Right.
I think that's probably a good direction to go in overall.
Okay.
Are you all set?
That sounds good.
So, Kara, if I may, under that same section, item 2, where they said it would present preemption issues, in that situation, are we better off to delete that and then just defer to the federal regs?
That one,
The visual line of sight?
I'm honestly not sure because I think Kevin's right that I think you took that language right out.
Straight out
and
of it.
So I didn't have a chance to look, but I was kind
Okay.
of surprised that they said that because I
Okay.
think it's the exact language. So I don't
It
know
is,
why.
yeah, it's definitely there. I took that word for word.
That's what I
Maintain
thought.
Okay.
a line of sight. You're not allowed, if it's out of your sight, you're not allowed to operate it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where like you can't have the Amazon
Right.
drones that fly in and drop your package. But so that I'm not sure. I mean, I could ask him to clarify that too, but I wasn't sure. So
What Jeff and Jesus told me, which is really cool on this, was there's actually a home feature on these so that when it leaves your line of sight, it's set to home, so it remembers on the GPS of it to actually, it'll go up, fly gently across, and it will return slowly to the ground, right where you started. If
Like
you
a
lose,
homing pigeon.
basically, yeah. It's the good ones, at least. Yeah.
see, you'll be operating a drone.
Oh,
before
yeah,
you
I'm
know
gonna
it.
get one of these. This is pretty
Counselor
good.
Lopez?
Kara, are you speaking to the police about how they're gonna enforce, or somebody in the police department just to make sure that they know what we're trying to do here?
Sure, I can send this. I haven't,
Yeah.
but I can send it along to them.
All right. Yeah, it would be a good idea just to make sure that it's not a surprise or anything like that.
So what is the pleasure of the makers of the order at this point?
I think we gotta table it and let Kara, you wanna do a little bit more work
Sure.
on the
No, I'll
tweaking
get
of
some
that and
revisions.
that hobbyist and commercial, and then for our next, could we put it on the agenda for our next ordinance meeting? So give her a couple more weeks,
Is that enough time?
That's yeah, it should be
Okay.
fine.
then we'll take it from there.
And I'll send it to the police chief as well.
Yep.
Okay, is there a second to table?
Second, motion to table?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Second?
All in favor? This order was filed by me, Counselor Bacon, that our ordinances be reviewed to revise language to prevent panhandling at gateways to our city and other locations. This activity does not promote a business-friendly environment. Consider adding language that panhandlers be required to obtain a permit from municipal police department, that it is a crime to panhandle in commercial areas as well as within 50 feet of any bank or automated teller machine, and that it is considered a crime for panhandlers to make false or untrue statements or to disguise themselves to solicit money and to use money obtained for a claim of a specific purpose to be spent on anything else. So we've gone around and around on this. We've gotten feedback on 7/8 of it. of the lawsuit relative to the Worcester situation and another city as well. And then most recently, I have it in email form from Kara, and I think we all have it relative to the concern about requiring a permit to solicit funds if it's under the banner of panhandling rather than under the banner of soliciting funds. So I think the best thing for us to do at this time is just give this leave to withdraw.
Okay.
And I think we should, you know, if we want to pursue the soliciting thing, which I think is probably the most germane that we could reasonably act on, I'll just file an order that addresses it properly as what it is.
Okay.
So,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
I mean, we can only dance it around so many times.
Counselor.
Okay, so, that being the completion of our agenda, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
We're all set, nothing else?
I think that's,
Charlie, we're good?
I think.
If
whatever.
there's any possibility that we take up the Holyoke Gas and Electric, whatever, I know the attorney Wilson is here for, there's a,
We're not taking it up tonight.
not tonight, but maybe in the
That's-
next few
it's-
meetings.
Oh, what's that?
It'll be considered
Yes.
for a future agenda.
Either
That's-
just to
it's
vote
not
up
on
and
the
down.
agenda
No,
tonight.
I know.
Thank you.
So what do you suggest, put it on a future?
Yeah, just to either up and down and move on,
Maybe, maybe the next agenda?
if it's possible, or not.
I'll look at it.
Okay.
A motion to adjourn is in order.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
So we're meeting next on the 9th? That would
Yes,
be- Yeah,
we have a
saw-
public hearing scheduled for our next meeting on the 9th.
August 9th,
Joint
next
public
ordinance.
hearing.
On what's the topic?
It's my order.
Diastato's order on the methadone Suboxone
Oh,
clinic.
okay. Always a good time.
And
Which
we
I-
might
other
also,
potatoes
we
for-
might also be able to take up the Coit Street matter, name change,
The 9th?
perhaps.
Retail center stuff coming up anytime
Oh,
soon?
no, Linda, save that for the next one. I'm on vacation that week,
Okay.
so, yeah. It's my one vacation. And it just got cut short, because I gotta
All
go
right.
to court in Worcester.
Oh, God.
I can't believe it.
Okay, thank you.
Until-
It's in the jacket along with about
Yeah.
20 other things.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna start running all the committee meetings this way, then that's where we'll go. But it's certainly a departure from our normal conduct.
This is the voice of the people, voice of the people. Just friendly feedback.